Hey there! Ready to dive into this whole idea of good judgment? Because we're tackling a question I think we've all asked ourselves. Is there a better way to understand people? Beyond those first impressions and gut feelings. We're diving deep into an excerpt you sent over from Good Judgment by Richard Davis. He really goes after this idea that's everywhere these days. Emotional intelligence, or EQ.
And for good reason, actually. It's not that emotional intelligence is a bad thing, but Davis points out how often we misunderstand it, especially in how it gets applied in the real world.
Okay, so unpack this for me. Where do things go off track with EQ? Because I feel like I can't scroll for 5 minutes without seeing another article about its importance.
Well, the original research on EQ by Slavy and Mayer was focused on very specific emotional abilities. Think, accurately perceiving your own emotions, and understanding how emotions impact your thinking, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is very different from what EQ has become in popular culture.
It's like the telephone game of self-help concepts, right? It starts with a clear message, but by the time it's gone around a few times.
Exactly. And Davis puts some of the responsibility on Golden's popular book, Emotional Intelligence. While impactful, it broadened the definition of EQ so much that it became this catch-all term. Suddenly, personality traits, even something as simple as being nice, got lumped in with these core emotional abilities. And that's where things get murky.
Because you can't measure being nice on a standardized test, can you?
Precisely. And assuming that a nice demeanor equals good judgment, that can backfire spectacularly. Davis gives that great example of David, the law firm partner. He was charismatic, charming, the kind of guy who lights up a room.
There's always a but in these stories.
Oh, there is. Turns out David was also impulsive and prone to losing his temper. In fact, he ended up publicly dressing down a colleague, not the best look for someone supposedly high in EQ. This is exactly why Davis argues that fixating on superficial charm or someone's perceived niceness can be incredibly misleading.
Okay, I'm starting to see the danger of equating a dazzling smile with good judgment. So if EQ isn't the be-all and end-all, what does Davis suggest instead?
He proposes something he calls the personality blueprint. It's a framework for understanding people based on deeper personality traits, not just surface-level impressions.
A blueprint for people. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
He actually bases it on the big 5 personality traits. These are, well-researched, scientifically validated traits that psychologists have identified.
Right.
But Davis felt the big 5 were a bit too academic, not quite user-friendly enough for everyday life.
So he gave them a makeover practicality edition.
Exactly. He took those core concepts and created a system that's, designed for real-world application. His personality blueprint boils down to 5 key categories.
Hit me with it. What are the categories?
First, you've got intellect. This is about how someone thinks. Are they quick to grasp new ideas? Naturally curious. Then there's emotionality, which is all about how they manage their feelings. Are they generally resilient? Do they seem empathetic? Or do they tend to overreact?
Okay, so instead of just slapping a label on someone like emotional, unemotional, this system gets into the nuances.
You got it. Next up is sociability. How does someone interact with others? Are they a smooth talker? Do they seem to build rapport easily? Or are they a bit more reserved? Then we have drive, what motivates them. Are they ambitious, goal-oriented, or do they seem content with the status quo? What are their core values? Finally, there's diligence. This one's all about how they approach work. Are they organized and disciplined, or more go with the flow?
I'm already seeing how helpful this could be. It reminds me of that example Davis gives about Elon Musk.
Perfect example. Davis talks about how Musk clearly scores high in intellect. Guy is brilliant, a visionary. But he can also come across as socially awkward.
Right. And thinking about it through the lens of the personality blueprint, it suddenly makes so much sense.
That's the beauty of it. Instead of just seeing those contradictory behaviors as, oh, Elon Musk is weird, you start to understand the why behind them. It's the combination of these traits that makes him who he is, both the genius and the guy who struggles with social graces.
It's like that saying, the same boiling water that softens the potato hardens the egg. It's not just about the circumstance, but the inherent qualities someone brings to the table. Which reminds me of another great example Davis uses, Irene, the chatty airplane passenger.
Oh, Irene. She was a walking, talking case study in personality. The way she overshared personal details with complete strangers, immediately suggested high extroversion. But her chronic lateness hinted at low conscientiousness. And the way she spoke, all jumbled and anxious, suggested high neuroticism.
It's like Davis says, personality is often right there on the surface if you know what to look for. This is so fascinating, but I have to ask, how do we actually put this personality blueprint to work in our own lives? Because it's one thing to analyze Elon Musk from afar, but I'm more interested in understanding the people I actually interact with on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're right. It's all about practical application. And Davis gives us the tools to do just that. He talks about this idea of mastery, which he calls the 6 box of the personality blueprint.
Okay.
It's about knowing your own personality inside and out, and then learning how to adapt your style depending on the situation and the people you're dealing with.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense because we've all probably encountered situations where our usual approach backfires and we think, why didn't that land the way I expected?
Exactly. And often, it comes down to personality mismatch. Davis tells this great story about a CEO who is incredibly driven and successful, but he realized that his intensity, which served him well in many contexts, was actually intimidating his team and hindering collaboration.
So what did he do?
He made a conscious effort to soften his communication style and be more collaborative. He didn't try to become someone he wasn't, but he learned how to adjust his natural tendencies to be more effective. That's mastery in action.
Okay, I love that. It's like having a toolkit of different communication styles and knowing which one to pull out depending on who you're working with.
Exactly. Davis also talks about creating what he calls a user's manual for the people in your life.
Wait, like an instruction manual for humans? I'm in. Tell me more about this.
Think of it this way. Once you understand someone's personality blueprint, you can anticipate their needs and potential hot buttons. Davis gives the example of a private equity firm that was bringing on a new CEO. Brilliant woman, but known to be impulsive and a bit of a risk taker.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster if not managed carefully.
Right. So the firm, being savvy about personality, actually created a user's manual for their new CEO. They built in processes to provide more structure around her decision-making and ensure she wasn't making rash moves.
That's brilliant. It's like they were proactively minimizing friction points before they even arose.
Exactly. It's about working with someone's personality, not against it.
Okay. I'm adding create a user's manual to my to-do list. Any other practical tips Davis offers?
He also has this great tool he calls the character quick take. It's a method for quickly assessing someone's personality based on their initial reactions and behavior. He uses the example of a fender bender.
Oh, I remember that. Because who hasn't been in that situation where you're a little shaken up and suddenly you have to interact with a complete stranger?
Right. And it can go in so many directions depending on the personalities involved. But Davis says that even in those first few moments after a fender bender, you could start to get a read on the other driver's personality by paying close attention.
So how do you do it? Give me the
Yeah.
inside scoop.
It's about being observant. How are they communicating? What's their body language like? Are they calm and analytical, focused on solving the problem? Are they more emotional? Maybe a bit reactive? Or are they trying to smooth things over, be friendly and reassuring? These initial cues can tell you a lot and help you tailor your own approach.
It's like having a superpower. Being able to read people so quickly, I love it. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It really has. And the best part is the more you practice observing people through this lens, the better you'll get at it. So the next time you're meeting someone new or even just interacting with a colleague, see if you can put your character quick take skills to the test.
Such a great challenge. It's about so much more than just labeling people, isn't it? It's about moving beyond those surface-level impressions to cultivate true perceptivity, which, as you alluded to earlier, seems even more relevant in today's world.
Absolutely. We live in a time where artificial intelligence is becoming increasingly sophisticated. But here's a thought. In a world increasingly dominated by AI, understanding real complex human beings might just be your ultimate competitive advantage.
Ooh, I love that. It's not about fearing technology, but about honing the skills that will always be uniquely human. And this deep dive has given us so much to think about, and more importantly, to actually apply in our lives. So thank you to you and to Richard Davis for his insightful book. For everyone listening, if you want to take your people skills to the next level, I highly recommend checking out Good Judgment. And until next time, keep diving deep into the fascinating world around us.